Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. I want to ask you guys something. Has everyone felt so exhausted and drained lately? Maybe feeling so stressed out because of what you're doing? It could be work, school, and to a point where you realize that you're slowly grow to hate your thing that you're doing. And those are really the symptoms of burnout. And today we're gonna dive into what is really the root cause of burnout. Hello, my name is Pengadil from 9th grade, and this is impersonal interest as the root solution to burnout. The root cause of burnout, in my opinion, stems from this idea of specialization in our society. Now, I've noticed that a lot of people are very obsessed with labels nowadays in our society. So, for example, you'll go to a party and people would ask you, so what do you do? So then immediately you have to supply the person asking you with a label, right? Maybe you say, oh yeah, I'm a teacher, or I'm a writer, I'm a creative, or I'm this and this and that. So then what this labeling is essentially neglecting is how complicated we are as human beings, how intrinsically full of contradictions we are. And in a sense, specialization through forcing people into these roles is not just only going to change how we work, it also changes our subjectivity. It also changes on how we view ourselves as human beings. So you're no longer just a person who teaches. You're no longer a verb, but now you're a noun. You're a teacher. And that self-definition speaks on how you regard the rest of your life. So if you're overly obsessed with being a certain thing in your life, if you're overly obsessed with being, for example, being a student, and this is a very common problem for students, and this is why students are, should I say, the group that is most prone to burnout, is that once you've defined yourself as a student who is very hardworking especially, you tend to feed all of your energy into maintaining that identity, right? And of course, for younger people, we spend so much time trying to construct a sense of who we are and trying to identify who we are at such a young age. And we don't necessarily see the damage this is causing us. And I'm really excited to share that insight with you guys on earning personal interest and to basically draw some light on this idea of why you shouldn't be one thing in your life and why you should invest in multiple disciplines in your life. So, defining personal interest as the solution is to invest time into things that you're organically interested in outside of your direct path in life, because we can get so narrow focused and obsessed with one thing in our life that we basically don't spare any time for anything outside of it. So, to defining personal interest as the solution to burnout, as the solution for this modern day phenomenon of exhaustion, are basically just interests that you're organically interested in, that are unrelated to your main path in life, that are unrelated to anything that you would deem as important, or anything that's like professional obligations, familial obligations, or work complications, so to speak. Now, let's talk about this idea of impersonal interest and how to introduce more of this interest into your life. So I want you guys to count on your hand right now, outside of work, outside of studying, how many interests do you do for yourself? Maybe how many books have you read that you can safely say, I've read that book just for me, I've read that book just for my own pleasure, or I've watched that film just because I enjoy it and not because some friends suggested me to watch it, and not because you're doing it for an ulterior purpose, but you're just doing it for yourself, sincerely. So, for a lot of us, it's probably not that many. For a lot of us, it's probably such a rare thing that we do anything for ourselves anymore. And this idea is really a product of specialization. And that cuts off a lot of these potential interest ideas that you could very much derive a lot of joy out of, that you could very much derive a lot of pleasure out of, that could potentially rejuvenate you instead and putting you in a better form back to the main thing that you're pursuing. And this happens with a lot of students because once you've adopted the idea that you're going to be a hardworking student, the idea that you're going to be at the top of your class, once you've become super competitive about being the best thing in your field or subject, then all of your energy sort of goes into that one thing. And you sort of neglect all of these interests. Maybe, for example, you want to go to a penning class on Saturday, but you suddenly feel like, that's a waste of time. I should be applying myself to my subject, or I should be reading that book for my class, or I should be studying politics instead. So, that whole cycle leads to burnout and could bring you to a terrible downfall where you will grow to hate this main pursuit of yours. Because, of course, we as human beings, if we do one thing for too long, we tend to get bored of it, right? And that's just simply a matter of fact. If you don't have the supporting interest in your life that's going to bring clarity into your main pursuit, then that's going to lead to a lot of, should I say, a downfall. That's going to lead to a lot of internal conflict, and one day, if you look at your subject, you grow to hate it. And that is how you know you're venturing towards the point of burnout. So the root cause of burnout is this idea of becoming overly obsessed with your identity. And the solution is rather simple, honestly. It's basically just to open yourself up into this alternative interest that organically interests you, and to somehow reframe it in your brain as something that is also important. Because we don't do these things because we don't think they are interesting. We don't do these things because we think they are unimportant. But actually, I'm telling you guys that you need to be investing more time to this satellite interest, alternative interest, and to, expand your interest as a whole. And that's what I think is really, should I say, the root solution to gaining more energy, refreshing you once in a while, and also adopting a more healthier attitude towards facing burnout. And that is the end of my presentation. But one thing that I want to say to finish this up is, I really want you guys to think on this subject and to think this interest as important. Sprinkle this interest into your life in whatever shape or form possible to rejuvenate you, to put you back on track with the thing that you can actually consider as important. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.